All right, this is my free Jiffy Model 30. Kind of free. I purchased 2 augers for $200. I can put a picture up of the other one. I think it was a Rapala Vortex, 8-inch. And I'll put a picture up now and show you. I sold that for $200, so that would make this one free. The first one, the only problem with it was it had a leak in the grommet for the gas can, or for the gas tank. So I sealed that off, fired it up, it ran good, so I offed it for $200 pretty quick. And then this was the one that I was kind of looking for. This is the one that I wanted, so not that I want this one. I do have another propane auger, and this thing I wouldn't trade for anything. But that's like a, I don't know, maybe a 2019 model. This one is a 1995, and I know that because I emailed Jiffy, and a few days later they emailed me back. I just gave them the serial number. They emailed me back and told me that it was a 1995 model, 8-inch auger. So yeah, it's not in bad shape. It runs. I opened up the gas can, and it had like a pretty thick oil in it. No gas. I guess all the gas had evaporated, and so I just poured some mix into it, fired it up. It runs. It's loud, as they always are, I guess. We had a model, it was probably the same vintage as this when I was young, in the early 90s, I guess. It was identical as a Model 30. There wasn't many options back then. You only had hand auger or Jiffy Model 30 was your only options back then. Late 80s, early 90s. I don't know when they started to build these cheap, affordable, whatever, augers. And they kind of did away with this model. I'm not totally sure why, but went with, Chinese-made motors and plastic gearboxes and all kinds of good stuff. So what we'll do is I'll pop this, the auger bit off. I'll get this put up on a stand. It runs, but I always do the carburetors on them. So I'll start digging into it. We'll get that gas can off and the recoil assembly off, so we can see what we're doing. I'll pop the carb off. I did purchase a carb kit. Yeah, I found a spark plug carb kit. I don't care if it needs a carb kit or not. It's going to get one. So for the price of these things, it's cheap insurance. I'm going to sell the auger. So I always like to, do as much as I can before I sell it. So we'll go over the whole thing. I felt the lines and whatnot. They don't seem bad. So I don't think we'll be changing any of the fuel lines and the primer lines and that type of thing. But let me get it put up on a stand and we'll get that auger off, and we'll get going on it. Ooh. So that just comes off. Little screw gets threaded into it. All right, there it is. all that is an upside down motocross stand, like a dirt bike stand. So you want to put it up on something. I see a lot of people working on the motor with the auger on it, and you know, test running it and everything else, and it seems crazy to me. But so you just want to, you can throw it in the milk crate, whatever you want to do, but it's best to get it up there, and then it's nice and sturdy and you can work on it and start ripping pieces off. So that's what we'll do is we will start with the gas can. We'll get this off, and then we'll dig into that carb. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is pull that gas tank off. So it does have gas in it, so I'm going to tilt it up. I just got to take this clip off in the hose. So the clip just slides back and the hose pops off. And then our gas can should be able to just pop right off. Of course it's gonna. Should probably empty the gas, but I don't do things the easy way. So there we go. You can see these little tangs just fit into the grooves on the outer recoil. So that's got gas in it. So I'm just going to dump that back into my gas can. And we can remove some of the screws on this. See, there's a screw coming back out. So this is going to have a kill switch, the on-off switch here, and we got a primer bulb there. So all that stuff's going to be attached. Maybe I have to. I think I might have to remove this arm as well. That bolt is connected as well, so I'll get that removed and we'll come back. Okay, so I've got that stud out. That little stud also act as the throttle lever. So you got to pull that off. This should come off now. We just got to deal with the primer and the ignition switch. So you can see up in there, we got our primer bulb and our ignition. Looks like the ignition just pops right off, and I guess we'll do the same with the primer. So yeah, there's what that looks like. So this is the reason that I feel like this auger is second to none. The you know, when it gets real cold, you have the option of priming that engine. So a lot of times when the motor's super cold, you'll fire it up, it'll fire, and with the newer engines, all you have is that choke. So as soon as the engine dies, then you pull. With this one, you can prime it to begin with, fire it up, and then as the engine wants to die, because it's so cold, you can primer it just to keep that engine running until it warms up enough that you can plow some holes in it. I think that that's a pretty valuable tool when you're out there. A lot of the new ones don't. None of the new ones have a primer on them anymore. They're all choked and or electric or propane. Propane is. I went to propane for the reason that I just hated pulling on gas motors, you know, or gasoline. So yeah, we popped that off. Coil, flywheel. And like I said, this motor does run, but we just want to get at that carburetor. And from here, it's pretty easy to get that carb off. A couple of springs and a couple of bolts, and it'll come off. So we'll do that, and then I'll tear the carb down and clean it, and then we'll go through the motor and see what if there's anything. It really is. I mean, it's in pretty good shape. So just really want to clean it up, make sure that carb is clean, and we'll put it back together and fire it up. I'll probably sharpen the blades, do some scrubbing on it. I might take some parts to work and just clean them up in the parts cleaner, and that'll be it. All right, there's only 3 things you need to remove to get this carb out. First is going to be your primer line. Pop that off the bottom. The second, which is a little more finicky, hopefully you can see that on all shadows here, the little spring. Tiny little spring there. We can just grab some needle nose. Try not to wreck the spring as it's coming out. Maybe it comes off here easier. Okay, I'm going to put you down and do this so I don't wreck that spring. I'll just leave the spring. So the spring's still on, connected to this portion, but it's disconnected from the carburetor. 7/16 wrench will get these nuts off. My stand is there. We go. The stand was getting in the way of removing these nuts. So there it is. So what we'll do is we'll clean that up. I'll probably give it a bit of a blow, and then I'll pull the carb apart and I'll clean it. I'm going to throw that through the ultrasonic cleaner. I'll do a separate video on the carb clean, just so that this one's not so lengthy. But we'll come back when the carb's clean, and we'll stick that back on. I'll likely, like I said, I'll likely go over this and clean up whatever I can while it's disassembled, get it looking as best I can, and then we'll get that carb on and get it running as best we can and sell it. Okay, we're gonna give these parts a scrub. I'm just gonna put the whole thing right in the parts wash. If you can see, I've taped off the port, the intake. it doesn't really matter if we get anything in there. This is an oil-based product. It's not like it's water. You probably wouldn't want to do this with straight water, at least with that carb port open. So there we go. We'll let that sit and dry for the next 8 hours or so, and then we'll take it home and start doing some reassembly. I'm gonna give this stuff a try. See if it could brighten up that finish. It's pretty stained, so we'll try this stuff. I got gloves on for this stuff because it's brutal. Open this up. This stuff takes all the stains off. This is a concentrate and I'm just using it full strength, so it's probably a little overkill, but whatever. Well, it definitely takes the stains off, so. Okay, we'll get that all wiped down. I'm going to remove that little sticker there. I have a product to do that. I've got a couple of stickers that click around here that I'm going to remove. Clean up the handles and we should be good to go. Okay, let's go ahead and get this reassembled. We have our carburetor all clean. We put that through the ultrasonic cleaner. So what we'll do is we've got our little tray with all the parts that we took off, the nuts, the 3 bolts, and the stud. So the 2 nuts for our carburetor. Are going to go back on. The carb just slips on it. We already have our gasket. So we'll slip the 2 nuts on that hold the main carb body, and then we have our little spring.
It slips into the carburetor and then onto this little tangly bit.
Just make sure that all works. Nothing's being held up.
Tighten our nuts.
Show you where that spring goes. this little bit right here, and then onto the carb. So we have spark plug. I don't really know what the spark plug they call for. This is an NGK, and it's a BPMR7A, and I just cross-referenced that with the new spark plug. So we'll make sure it gaps. To about 30,000. And then we can go ahead and start putting our recoil back on. And then we can get the gas tank back on as well. This is our primer. So primer goes on the bottom of the carburetor, back up through. Make sure our shield is in place. And then right back onto the primer bulb. Couldn't see any of that, so but that's how it goes. So we got our ignition and our primer back on. Our cover. Goes on just like that. And then we have
these 3 bolts.
And then remember, this last one was a stud that also held our throttle arm in place. Make sure you can still see what I'm doing here. So I think it went like that.
Then we just gotta get that throttle arm back in. So just a little screw goes through there, and there's a nylock wash or a nylock nut.
So nothing's hanging up. And we have our gas tank.
Put a little clip on it, and then this should slide right back into these grooves.
So there it is. Primer should be hooked up. So now all we need to do is some mix. We price of mixed gas. It calls for 24 to 1. I've heard that these things run on 40 to 1, but we'll mix it up 24 to 1, a small batch, and fill it up and we'll start out. Okay, let's fire this thing up. It's been sitting probably for 10 minutes with the fuel in it. Just check to see that it's got no fuel leaks. It doesn't seem to have any. I don't see any fuel leaking out of that carb, so we'll go full choke. In the on position. Primer. I want to make sure our fuel... I've got a screwdriver ready just in case I need to adjust the carb. It's going to be loud. There it is. It's loud. It'll shake the fillings out of your teeth. So we'll I'll probably let that run and do a little more tweaking on it, but it looks pretty good. I'll make sure it's got no fuel leaks, and then we'll move on, sharpen some blades on those on that auger there. I got the auger sitting just in the corner, so we'll get those off and sharpen the blades and get this thing ready and get it sold. All right, I let it warm up and adjusted those screws a little more, and it seems to be running better. It's warm now, so. So that's kind of what you want. The two screws. The one closest to the motor is the low speed, or the idle speed, and then the other one's the high speed. So you just basically adjust the low speed until you get it to idle. Sometimes I mess with the idle. Actually brought the idle down a little bit, and then the high speed you have to give it full throttle, and you can adjust that. It works out to I think this one was a full turn and a bit out, and this one was 1 turn out. So, but you'll have to adjust to play with it and see. But it seems to run pretty good. Okay, auger blades are they're pretty simple to remove. These blades are really in pretty good shape. So you just get a 7/16 wrench on the backside on the nut. So just a nut and a bolt holding that on. You can see there's a little groove here, and there's a couple of little notches in your auger, so that you can't put these blades on wrong. You'll always want to sit in those notches. So you just pop them in the notches, and there you go. think the Jiffys run opposite other brands, so they run backwards, or however you want to look at that. So to sharpen those blades, these blades aren't that bad. So generally what I do, just take a piece of sandpaper and kind of try to put an edge on that. It doesn't need to be a razor blade, it'll cut ice, but if there's any big chunks out of it, or if they're really dull, you'd need to replace them. But I think these are pushing, I don't know, $75 or something, maybe almost $100 to replace the blades. I don't know that I'll probably sell this whole unit for $150, maybe $200 if I'm lucky. So that's sharpening the blades, pretty simple. So there it is, the free Jiffy auger, 1995 Model 30. Seems to run pretty good. I'll likely list that for about $200, and I don't know, if somebody offered me $150, I'd take it. So maybe we got a little snow out there now, so people might be more willing to pay $200 for it. I think it's a pretty good auger for that kind of money, but people just don't seem to want the old stuff. I could sell an offshore kind of cheap auger in a day before I could sell this thing. So people just don't know. So hopefully it sells.